That specific feeling, that click, in psychology, that's called a tangible feedback loop. It's the signal to your nervous system and your brain that a task has a physical beginning and a physical end. And in a digital world where the world is pretty much infinite, that's what your brain is starving for. So today we're going to be analyzing why dumb objects are making a comeback and why these analog objects could be the future of mental clarity. So digital fatigue isn't just about brain rot content and having to look at a blue light all day and just your eyes getting strained. More than anything, it can be explained using a psychological principle called the Zeigarnik Effect. The Zeigarnik Effect basically explains that the brain holds on to unfinished tasks. So when you close out a tab or when you do something that's digital that you don't get necessarily physical feedback from, that task is still in your head. So if you have 53 tabs open and you close all of those tabs, you're still subconsciously thinking about everything that you've done if you didn't get that physical feedback. And you know, sometimes we have things like a mouse where we click and we get that feedback and that can help out. But a lot of times we're just tapping it. And if you're like me, I turn off the clicks and taps on my phone, all those sounds on the screen, because I just don't want to hear the sounds. So essentially you're just building up tab after tab after tab, window after window, and your brain is getting fatigued because it's holding on to all of that information all at once. But if you close that loop, you essentially get to move on from that topic and think about something else. And just think about how much it is for the brain to process when Instagram has no ending. That much content, that much of one thing for our brains is just nuts for it to have to handle. So who remembers the cameras that we used to take and we used to get before vacation that was a disposable camera? You go on vacation somewhere, you grab your camera, it has like 25 shots on it or 30 shots on it. And every time you click it, it's a flash and a click, and then you slowly feel the button come back up and then you have to wind it. And that's one picture. So because you have to go through that entire process just to take a picture, that picture is done. And that's why it seems like those cameras lasted so long, because we were getting the satisfaction of ending every task every time we used the camera, and it lasted a longer time. I mean, nowadays we can just like tap the phone screen like 50 times in a row and take 50 pictures. So let's talk a little bit more about this tangible feedback loop. We are able to understand the world because of the sense of touch, because of this thing that we call proprioception, which essentially just means your feeling of touch, your feeling of feedback from every object helps you understand the world that you're living in. So beyond like it taking up space in your memory, also just getting feedback from something, having to push against something or rub something or whatever you have to do for something to work, it actually gives you a good understanding of the world. So like, you know, me holding this microphone, I know that there's a microphone in my hand. What's really the difference between my hand doing this and my hand doing this if I can't feel the microphone? And I just realized the mic was probably away from me. But what's really the difference between that and doing anything unless you can actually feel the feedback from that object that you're interacting with? And I'm going to date myself again as a millennial here. We had VCRs where you literally had to rewind it back to the beginning. There was a clear end and beginning to everything. And not only when a DVD or a VHS ended did we have to stop watching that movie or show, we also had to physically get up to take that CD or take that VHS tape out of whatever we were watching it on and either put something else in or do something else, which really just let our nervous system know that, hey, I'm done with this particular task. But if you're on Netflix, you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do, you don't even have to do anything. It'll just play forever. And it's funny because we always have talked about the last like 20 years when you saw these touchscreen phones come out, we all talked about how we wanted basically less friction with the world. And now that we're getting it, people are literally bending over backwards to do things that give them feedback. Like getting an older phone. Like I've seen people get older phones so they can press the buttons. I've seen people go back to using notebooks instead of writing notes in their phone. There's just something that humans enjoy and that they crave and that they always will need that just involves using your sense of touch to its fullest extent. And honestly, if you think about it, like let's really think about it here. Friction and touching is literally the only thing right now that's differentiating us from AI. The only difference right now, because now it can see things, it can tell you what it's seeing, it can tell you what it's hearing. Eventually they have technology already, but eventually we'll be able to get it to smell. And let's talk a little bit more about people buying all the old technology that was out when I was a little kid or when I was like middle school, where again, we had things like iPod Nanos where you actually click the buttons, and Blackberries were the iPhones of that time, where they had the entire keyboard and people loved the clicking, and we had sliding phones. And now you think about it, that's kind of coming back with now we have phones that you have to flip open again. Now we have phones that flip open in the tablet. So it's kind of coming back right now because people always have wanted that. But it makes sense that people are kind of fleeing to these older devices and to things like notebooks and typewriters and things like that. Because if you look at our lives right now, again, going back to things like streaming, we can literally access everything anywhere. The movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, we literally are living in that movie. We can watch anything we want on our phones, on our TVs, going to the store. There's no beginning or end time wise or space wise. There's no beginning or end anything anywhere. Work exists at home. Work exists at work. It exists on vacation. It exists everywhere. It exists at the mall. You can literally do everything that you would normally do somewhere else at a different time. It's really crazy when you think about it. So having these things like a notebook or a camera or a DVD player or anything that people are kind of retreating back to, it makes sense. We're kind of just setting boundaries with the world. We're kind of just setting boundaries with the technology and everything that's around us to say, when I want to write something, when I want to write a story, I want to actually write that story. When I want to draw, I don't want to just draw on my tablet and not feel the pencil slowly grinding down as I'm drawing it. I want to actually draw on a notepad and not have something pop up that I wasn't expecting, that I didn't want to interact with at that time. So it makes perfect sense that we're kind of retreating to these dumb technologies. But we're not perfect people here. Like, we have to interact with the world. We got to use our phones. We don't have to, but for the most part, we're going to have to use technology if we want to interact with the world as it stands for now. So there are a couple of things that you can probably do on a daily basis that can still give your brain the fix that it wants, that it needs so badly, and it won't really take much effort. So how about when you get up in the morning, you do something that's physical? Whether it be you read a physical book, whether it be you actually go and make coffee, you do something physical before you do something digital. That way you're kind of grounding yourself into your body first thing in the morning, and you feel like a real person the second you wake up, and you're not completely exposed to everything that exists in the entire planet and all of reality the second you wake up. And then while you're at work, if you're taking notes, sometimes just take physical notes. Like, I find myself taking a lot of Notepad app notes and like the Windows Notepad app. And I usually take a ton of notes there. And sometimes it's good for like copying and pasting into something else. But at the end of the day, I find myself never looking back at those notes. Whereas when I have a physical notebook, I can actually scroll through there. I can actually feel the physical writing on the notepad. And I remember it. I mean, we all know research has shown that you remember it more when you write it down. But if you find time every day at work to do that, again, it'll make things feel that much more grounding. And then towards the end of the day, do something every day like stretching, like working out. I mean, working out, a lot of people already do that every day before they go to sleep or every day after work. And that's something you should definitely do. Move your physical body, or, read a book, or do something that just reminds you that you're actually interacting with the space around you. And I think you'll feel pretty good. So again, no wonder we're all overstimulated. We're literally in an infinite reality right now. And there's no sign that's telling us, hey, stop interacting with that. Stop. You got to go to sleep, or stop. Like, we can go on forever and ever. And the only thing that really stops us is fatigue or our eyes hurting. But our actual brain kind of never stops. And speaking of infinite realities and infinite options, I just did a video on dating apps and how people feel like they can just scroll forever. They feel like there's a billion people out there that are just knocking down their door, and they never really give anyone a chance. Check it out here.